Welcome back to week one, lecture two. Last lecture, we discussed what the course would be about in general. So, just to summarize, in general, in our comparative religion course, we will specifically take a look to see what religions say about how they make sense of the world and our place in it. We will also take a look to see what these religions say about how we can best live our lives. Now, the world, though, is comprised, as we noted last time, of thousands of religions. So that means that there are thousands of responses and answers to these questions. So we can't possibly go through all of these religions. In our class, we'll focus mainly on the quote unquote major religions. So Hinduism and Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism. We'll take a look at Christianity and Islam and Judaism. We will also take a look at native or indigenous traditions. And we'll take a look at New Thought type churches also throughout our quarter together. So why is this sort of study important? Obviously, we want to learn what people in the past have done to live their lives well. But in a general sense, we see that religion has had such a positive influence in so many people's lives. Uh, we can look at world leaders and people that have created social change, whether it's Nelson Mandela, who relied on his religion as his bedrock, or the Dalai Lama, or Martin Luther King, who used his faith as the inspiration and motivation for the civil rights movement. Gandhi, who helped um, India overcome British rule. We can see how Mother Teresa was inspired and moved by her faith to do so much for the needy in the world. We see religions creating, having created schools and bringing education uh, into areas where the state is unable to do so. Similarly, religions create medical care, hospitals, and help build homes in such communities and help care for the poor and the homeless. They help provide disaster relief. Religions have helped with hospice care. They've helped with criminal rehabilitation. When we take a look at psychological studies and sociological studies, we see that there's a strong correlation between being religious and levels of happiness, meaning that when somebody says they're religious, that is strongly correlated to being happy. It doesn't mean it's a cause and effect relationship. It doesn't mean if you're religious, you'll automatically be happy. It's a variable that seems to be strongly correlated to happiness. High religiousness is also a good predictor of lower risk of depression and drug abuse and fewer suicide attempts. There's a strong link between faith and altruism. Um, when somebody claims to be part of a religion, there seems to be a strong tie to them being giving towards others. Yet, it seems as if on a daily basis we're confronted devastating devastating conflict and devastating uh, acts that are perpetrated in the name of religion. We see various terrorist attacks where those who commit these acts of terror claim to be doing it for God or for the faith. From the 11th to 13th century, we see the Crusades, where um, Christianity tries to reclaim land in the Middle East that had been conquered by Islam. And through these few centuries, Christian soldiers brutally swept through this area, trying to reclaim the land and trying to convert people to Christianity. The estimate is between uh, 500,000 to 3 million civilian casualties, civilian deaths as a result of, of the Crusades. The Spanish Inquisition in the 12th century, where the church tried to root out heretics, tried to root out people who were not faithful to the church, by torture and various other painful means. They also tried to encourage people to be more faithful by doing these sorts of horrific acts, especially in public. It's estimated over 300,000 people were put on trial, um, yeah, in terms of to see if they were going against the church. And there's an estimated it's estimated that 6,000 were put to death because they were deemed heretics. The KKK, under the banner of Christianity, will claim to try to restore Christian values. And they'll do so through violent acts, uh, um, from cross burnings to physical acts of intimidation. Back in the 1960s, Birmingham, Alabama, was the location for the famous church bombings, where 4 children died at the hands of KKK terrorists, all in the name of trying to restore what they claimed to be Christian values. Soldiers in the Army of God is a group um, uh, claiming to do God's bidding by trying to protect the lives of the preborn. So they've often committed acts of terror against abortion clinics. Um, as early as the 1300s, even though these are more popular in the 1800s, Hindu thugs, these bands of assassins and murderers, would commit killings in the name of the goddess Kali as a human sacrifice. And these killings would be ritualistic in nature because it's part of this ritual to appease the goddess Kali. Indigenous cultures, specifically the Mayans, were well known for human sacrifices in the attempt of appeasing their gods. Even within a religion, there's a history of conflict. We see within Islam, the Sunnis and Shiites having violent conflict within their history, and within Christianity, Catholics and Protestants have a violent history. So, what the question you might want to think about is, how can we reconcile this? How can we see, on one hand, religion having such a positive effect on so many people's lives, yet on the other hand, so many violent acts and so many horrific conflicts are often done in the name of religion. When we take a look at all the major religions, interestingly, they all seem to have what we often refer to as the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, some form of that ethic. So how does that make sense? How does it make sense that even though all of these major religions have that rule, we still see conflict and we still see acts of terror and we still see violence done in the name of religion? This is the question that you'll be discussing in one of your discussions for this week. So be sure to create your first post before Wednesday at 11:59, and check back to the same discussion to post at least one reply to a fellow student before Friday, 11:59.